see. I don't, for some reason, that's not allowing me. I could just,
Then
Can you
you'll
just
have,
highlight it and try to increase the font on that particular?
no, it's not.
what I was looking for, I actually have a screen of the sustainability accords that I wanted to show you. It's from the comprehensive plan.
So make this smaller, what you're looking at.
All right, let's see. Smaller. That should work.
There you
That
go.
would
Close it.
discontinue that.
Okay, and there's no way of making it smaller?
All right, here's the
Okay, that's good.
here's the
That's all right.
sustainability. We'll go back to our list. I
Right.
just wanted to show you, here's what the sustainability accords are. And there are 15 that are found in the comprehensive plan, which Muriel has been working with us with a book club on. Many people have been reading the plan. So these are what we mean by the sustainability accords. And they certainly make sense.
Can you go back up to the top ones? The 1 through 4? Because you
1
scroll
through
fast.
4.
You scrolled a little fast there. There.
Okay.
No.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. This is referring to, even though this came out of the planning district, as indicated, it refers to just Albemarle County.
It does.
Because it says the county, you're
Exactly.
using the word. If you go back up to your original start of the accords, keep going.
That's as far as you can go.
Okay.
It's the county's comp plan.
It just pertains to the county.
Yeah, these 15 accords continue to be important aspirational principles of the county. So,
No, the county accepted the sustainability accords was something that was going around. That was not living around here. It was going around everywhere. And the county accepted them. But to support what they say does not mean that you have to be part of the county. And this just says
right.
that we support the accords, particularly the section on government that says this. It's got nothing to do with any county or what a county is doing.
Then I don't see any problem with our statement of sustainability accords.
No, I don't see any reason to change it. The only thing is there's really nothing on government. It says particularly the section on government, and I have read these. I don't see anything.
That's
on
because
government.
what you've got is the Albemarle County Comprehensive Plan. And they chose,
What other sustainability?
they chose not to pick up every piece of the sustainability.
So this was the Thomas Jefferson Sustainability Council.
Yes.
Okay. All right, I'm going to go out of this now, if you all are okay with this, and go back to our program, our local program here. So again, I asked Sally Thomas about the sustainability accords last year because I didn't know where they came or anything about it. And so she said, you know, it was a committee, they worked with the comprehensive plan, and this is what they were. So I think it makes sense that we have them in here.
Yes.
Okay. All right, transportation. Seems like the statement here continues to be relevant.
Are we only going to be concerned about the Charlottesville, Albemarle County areas?
That's right. Good point.
I mean, maybe that is all that we can monitor.
Well, Jaunt is now officially not just handicap access, it's county access. It does serve the outlying counties.
I don't see why this can't be an editorial update.
You can, but
Right.
I'm
It-
serious, using our sphere of influence, whatever.
Right,
We ought to be able to just clearly update any statement that refers only to Charlottesville and Albemarle County.
Such as the word urban.
Well, except, do we, now that would, if you want to add the rural areas, I think that would require a little more study.
well, no, but it does say that. It says where the need can be demonstrated.
It's rural-
through
Rural
service.
service, yeah,
That's fine. It's
It's
fine the
fine.
way it is, but
as long as we could, maybe fix the Charlottesville, Albemarle County areas into,
well, it says in the greater Charlottesville, Albemarle County areas. It just should say in that district. I mean, it's already encompassing all the counties around us. When you say greater Charlottesville, Albemarle County areas, you're talking about all the areas around.
If you take out Albemarle, it does. If you just say greater Charlottesville area.
Right.
it does all.
Okay,
right.
that's true.
Could you just say, in the planning.
If you would
district,
change,
the planning district without putting a name on the planning district?
You could.
Well,
Word
why
area.
don't we decide and be consistent? So if we were to use the term greater, then we would want to be consistent throughout the whole program planning document. If we want to list each county by name, then we should do that consistently throughout the whole document. Or if we want to look up and see if it has in fact been changed to the Blue Ridge Planning District,
You can
that
just use
seems like
planning,
that would be the
you can
easiest.
use planning district without giving it a name.
Mhm.
Do you think so?
You
Well,
can
let's
say
just-
our service
Because
area.
every area has their own planning district, and it's logical that we are using our planning district.
Yeah, I'm just concerned that I think consistency would be a good idea
I'm-
because, greater Charlottesville in this one and then something else in another one.
I'll note that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it probably isn't very hard if Carol, you think
Just
it
say
has
our service area.
to look up whether they have in fact been changed to
Oh,
the
yeah,
Blue
I'll
Ridge.
check
really
on
mad.
that.
That's just a quick Google search, right?
May I interject? By the time the membership considers this, it will be clear whether the district has been renamed.
Mhm.
At that point, or a month before the annual meeting information goes out, the board can propose that this new term be inserted. And if not, I strongly recommend that we use the term planning district because, again, implicit bias. I am super sensitive as a former Fluvanna County resident to the bias of almost all the language of this league referring only to Charlottesville and Albemarle County.
Okay.
And I
Thank
support
you,
that
Francis. Thank you, Francis.
totally.
And we had a good,
Particular thing,
sorry, go ahead.
for this particular thing, the transportation, and once again, at the time, was it considered as, and it should be stated as it was considered, we can't change it. That the monitoring was to be done just at the greater Charlottesville, Albemarle County areas. And I think they're talking about what we call the urban ring. I don't think they're talking about all of the Thomas Jefferson Planning District.
I
Okay.
agree.
Okay.
So that.
Okay, that's a good point. So in other words, Muriel is saying if it actually wasn't studied for the whole district, we should not change it to that. Is that right, Muriel?
Right.
Well,
Yeah,
let
so
me
that's
ask you all
that's
this.
an important point too.
Does anybody
So-
know if, was anybody in on this statement? And if it would be okay to monitor traffic patterns and problems in the greater urban ring of Charlottesville, Albemarle County areas? If we added urban ring, that would make it.
It doesn't do anything different.
Yeah, that one, Yeah, this is an issue. For those of you who were at the board, I don't know if everybody on this meeting was at the last board meeting, but we did discuss it. I think if I'm remembering right, Sue brought up that Charlottesville shouldn't be left out of something. And then a few other people brought up that Fluvanna was left out, Louisa was left out. So this is kind of an issue we really kind of need to discuss separately, how we're going to do this to make sure that we're more inclusive about all of the counties in the city. And
Okay.
I think this is kind of a longer discussion, to tell the truth.
Yeah.
Oh, and
Okay.
we're only talking about our programs now. What you're talking about is involving the rest of the counties in other things that we're doing. We're not
Yeah.
changing the program
Yeah, it's sort of
unless we're planning to restudy some.
yeah, it's kind of like a different, it's kind of like an issue that might have to
We'll
be
just leave it
discussed.
As it is for now, for transfer.
Okay.
It's not.
And-
Yeah.
And we'll be revisiting this, what we do today will be taken to the board and then we'll work on it some more. And there will be further discussion before the May meeting. So anyway, let's go on to natural resources. And if there's any recommendation, as far as I know, we will retain all of these, but is there any need for any further update? This climate change was the new update from last year. So there's energy, climate change, energy, land use, water, waste management.
The-
Areas.
Yeah, the Natural Resources Committee determined that that there were no necessary updates. Now, I would like to bring up something that does switch over into social policy also. The one thing that we kind of were considering or thinking about was environmental justice. But we determined that throughout our program section, you could find enough information that would support any stand we could think of that we might want to take related to environmental justice. So we did not add that as a specific statement because it looks like we're already supporting. We can pull out things that relate. However, there's nothing in the entire program that does sort of address the idea of social justice. And we were wondering that rather than a study, is there a way in social policy simply to add the fact that we support social justice or at least support the Constitution of the United States regarding social justice?
Well,
So I bring
Mary, I
that
think
up
that's
because
an
we're
excellent
fine
idea.
as far as
We-
we're concerned. If
We
any
definitely,
something we're missing, by all means, bring it up.
we definitely need to add something about social justice. And we'll talk about that after we get to the end of social policy, if that's okay, because that's an important area that we want to address today. So,
I have
so
a question about minutia, I guess, but why is it that in some places it says updated 220 and other places it just says 220? Is there a difference or?
Yes, the climate change was actually added in 2020, and water we just changed. We again, I think it was mostly a rewrite to make it clearer, but it was basically the way it was. We may have added, yeah, as I remember it now, we added words that indicated not just the water, but the way the water was being transmitted from one place to another. That was in there. So that was an update, but climate change was an addition. That was a change to it.
That's correct, Muriel. I know from just doing the revisions for the handbook. Where it says 2020, that means something completely new was added in.
Right.
And where it says updated, it was just a word change or a modification or a grammar change. That's all.
thank you, Jerry, that was a good question. Thank you all for addressing that. And then with social policy, I think childcare is retained as it is. And is there any need for any update or anything else on that?
Just to note, yeah, we voted on that, but just to note again, in the first part, which was there in place from 2001, as you can see, the word Thomas Jefferson Planning District is in there. So again, I almost think we need a little study group to study this wording issue.
Oh, okay, I'll check on that.
But I do want to mention that is in there left over from the 2001. Apparently,
As of right now, that's still the name, so it should stay there.
well, we don't.
Well, we'll keep it.
There's a
Before we do a new
and-
one, an editor can go through and make sure we could find all
Yeah,
those.
we'll make sure we're
not
consistent
a-
when these are. written.
Doesn't need a study committee.
That's pretty-
It doesn't. Well,
No.
okay, but what about Francis's concern about the name Thomas Jefferson?
Okay.
As long
all
as
you
it's
need
still
to
there,
do
it's
is
there.
have an editor go through and find every time it's mentioned and change it.
Whatever
Okay.
the new
We'll
name
be
is.
consistent.
Please.
Okay, well, I want to point it out that it is there and we need to get rid of Thomas Jefferson.
I've got it, Deb. I noted it and I'll follow up.
Okay.
Now,
Okay.
with education, we have a section where we recommended this last year. What's written in red here. I think this is a great statement. And we did have some things to add in red because we were interested in especially the cyber age statement. And the other statement we were interested in was support teaching about gun safety, violence, and protection in the schools. And what we had said last year was we were going to study this, and then we were going to vote on what we had found this year. But we did not do the study. Nothing was done in this section about these particular issues. So I'm thinking we retain and carry over and keep the same recommendation. We just need to do that when the schools are more functional. Because, the difficulties of access to the school, what was going on in the schools and so on.
Yeah, we can't be interviewing, calling, even looking online at things right now with the school systems. They're in overload completely. And this is just not time to be.
Yeah, so I think it's understandable. We had an additional suggestion for education.
Mhm.
Jerry Kruger had suggested this, that we support specified statements to assure quality education, et cetera, and add this statement: support for dual enrollment with historically Black colleges and universities to encourage students of color to attend college in order to enter the teaching profession. So, this is along the same lines where Piedmont Community College has an agreement with UVA that if students do okay in 2 years, they have an easier time to transfer if they maintain a certain grade average. Well, it seems that there's an interest with Charlottesville High School and Virginia State to have a similar arrangement. And Jerry, you can speak to this, but Jerry had suggested that we add something in our statements to this effect.
Do we have any local historically Black college or university though? I don't think we do. So this seems more like a state rather than a local statement. Because in our area, I don't think we have that I know of, have a historically.
Actually,
Maybe we do, but I
Actually,
don't know of.
actually, the Charlottesville High School has an agreement with Virginia State University in Petersburg that students can take courses with them
Oh, okay.
while they're in high school and get college credit, and then be able to attend there to become teachers.
So that would mean, so,
Trying to change we need more Black teachers is what we're saying.
okay, so that's interesting. So you're saying that our local high school has, it does, so we don't, my thinking was we don't have a Black college locally, but you're saying the high schools actually can have dual programs, like you said CHS has one with Virginia State.
There was an article in this week's Daily Progress about it.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, yeah, I would think that would be good, but do we need to study that before we add it, or can we just, does that need to be a study update, or do we add it, or how is that done?
It's a wonderful proposal. I agree with it, but it needs to be the result of at least an update.
Right. I totally agree with that. I mean, there's lots of statements that we could make of mom and apple pie that maybe we need to know the ingredients of the apple pie. You know, whose version of apple pie is it? So,
Well, I guess it sort of goes back to what we were doing with our local programs, with the updates that we did last year, right? With
yes.
statements, that we would do the same thing with that particular statement. Right.
An update requires basically, an update does requires a group of people looking at it
Yeah.
and bringing a recommendation.
Yeah, I
Okay.
was supposed
You
to
don't
do this.
just, you don't just assign it to somebody and then put it in.
Right.
Okay.
No, I was supposed to do this study. It's in our annual packet. It was part of what we submitted to membership last April when we sent out the annual packet. My name is there. It was not done because of COVID. And
Right.
that's all I can tell you. I'm willing to maybe work on it again this year, but it may not get done this year either because of COVID. So that's where we are. But this is a new piece. I mean, if Jerry, if you want to, take this on,
I'm not going to volunteer to take anything else.
yeah, right. I understand, but that's what would have to be done at this point.
Right. And I thought that could be the case when I suggested it.
Right.
Yeah, it would be something like adding this, and it would be in red too.
Right.
It would be something that's pending. We just need somebody to look into it a little bit further before we settle on including it in the program statement.
Well, officially,
Oh,
it's called a study update, not just looking into, but Jerry and Michelle, I might be willing, if you have a little committee, again, because of COVID, I don't know if we could do this,
That's the
but I
problem.
might, if Jerry and Michelle have a committee, I might be interested in joining that to do the study update, which would include this historically Black college. And certainly if there's a Daily Progress article, we could start with that article. I don't know. Do you think we could study this with COVID or not right now?
Well, it's just that if you want to use any of the local, for example, Charlottesville High School as a resource, I just would really hesitate to have to call over there, talk to the principal or talk to the government teacher. It's just not.
Please don't put that in red as if we're going to vote on it. If
Okay.
we're going to present it, it's got to be studied before it gets presented.
Right.
Yeah.
Do not put that part in red.
Okay, I've
Yeah.
got a question.
So maybe, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, we don't even have to put that in here now.
No, but we can ask for an update of a current position and the reason why and the scope It's very clear what we want to do, but do not put it in now as a recommendation.
As if we've already looked at
Right.
it.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely not.
Okay.
Okay, so did,
Frankie lady is leaving. I've got another meeting.
Sue, did you say you were leaving?
Yes, I put it in chat if anybody bothers reading chat.
Oh,
Yes,
I'm
you
sorry to hear
did.
that.
I,
Well,
unfortunately, I have overlapping meetings today.
Okay, I'm sorry you're leaving. And
If mine
we'll-
gets out earlier, I'll come back to you guys.
Okay, please
Bye,
do.
Sue. Bye, Sue.
Thank you, Sue, for your comments so far. So it looks like this, if Jerry and Michelle and Beth have any interest in studying this issue, Jerry, would you be, not studying, but to explore it further?
I really can't do any more than
Yeah, let's leave it off for now. It's
Okay.
I really like the idea, but I'm with Michelle that we just need to wait another year. A year from now, we can hopefully
right.
go and interview people. And I would be interested in that. And let's remember this, this issue about the dual enrollment, because I think it's
Okay.
important.
Right. I agree.
Thank you, Jerry, for bringing it to our attention, though. Francis?
Just a reminder that even though we don't adopt it as a study, that doesn't prevent any one of us from talking to boards of supervisors, the city council, the superintendents of schools in support of this wonderful idea. We just can't say the League of Women Voters supports it. And we can't say I, as a member of the league, support it. But it's a worthy thing to support.
Okay. That sounds good. We can individually address this with any opportunity we might have as citizens.
Mm-hmm.
So the next one then, okay, let's go ahead with education. We're still going to continue with this things that we talked about last year in education. And firearm safety, that remain, we certainly will retain that. Any further suggestions about that one? And health and family life education, it's the same situation here that we have with education. We talked about adding some additional statements, especially including the mental aspects of health along with physical. But again, this was not, we did not follow up on this as far as talking with the people at the school in terms of what's in the curriculum and what was being done. So this would be something that I think we would just recommend that we continue with what
Mimi Bender was, I actually talked to her the other day, in fact, at the end of the comp plan book club meeting. And she said, again, because of COVID, there was just no way. She had volunteered, and this was, again, in our annual packet.
Yeah, I was interested in helping with this too.
Right, and she had volunteered to look into this on a study basis, but it's just not possible. So I think, again, we just have to say, put it on hold. I mean, we almost have a new column in our report, what has to be put on hold for this year.
Deferred until after COVID.
Right,
So all of these in red also need to go out for now.
exactly.
Yeah, I like the idea of writing defer, even we could write defer until after COVID.
Okay.
So it doesn't, even for future reference, not that I think we're going to forget COVID very quickly, but it just is good to know it wasn't just left like floating. We deferred it intentionally because this is not something that is reasonable for us to study at the moment. Well, I mean, reasonable isn't the best word, but practical. How about practical? It's not practical to study this in 2020, 21 due to the COVID pandemic. restrictions or something. I like the idea of writing, having that in words, that we do still want to study this.
Excuse me.
You know, that we're interested in these topics and we would like to study them, but we are deferring them because of the
I'm
COVID-19
sorry.
pandemic restrictions or something like that.
Well, the form that we use, our summary form, Francis designed probably a couple years ago. And so it's very helpful that we have that form to use, Francis. And I'll add that extra column, defer due to COVID or something. I'll come up with something to start another column to indicate that we're just carrying it over. Okay.
One thing that occurred to me is if you don't have a way to duplicate this in color, all you have to do is change all those red things to italics or underlined. And that way you could say deferred or, you know, underlined or deferred.
Okay. All right, I'll do that then. I'll change maybe underlined, as Michelle had in our newsletter, in our December newsletter. If you remember, Michelle had indicated these two statements and had underlined what I have in red. So we'll do that. Thank you. Then the housing, I hope we can move on this one. I don't think anybody came up with anything to add that I know of to the housing position, but I think there's room there for something to happen for next year because of things that are going on in the community with housing.
Well, again, this is another one that says city and county. And just make sure you make a note of that.
Yeah, we might want to expand the scope of the geographical area.
And also by June, as you know from the affordability the State League's affordability study, which we all had a Zoom on a month or so ago, that it might be that we want to put that in there, not only the U.S. housing positions, but the
new updated Virginia statement.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And see, that's not anything we have to worry about. We can insert those as editorial changes. It's not involving a study or anything.
Well, I definitely think we'll have some things to say about housing next year.
Right. Oh, certainly after the
housing the things that are going on in the community now.
Right.
In the regional library statement, we probably want to retain that as it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And there it says regional library, which is great because it's certainly more than Charlottesville and Albemarle County.
Yeah, it's good we've already said that.
Right.
Well, you all, we've got, it's about 3, and we have to move to the Virginia statement.
No, let's do justice reform now.
Yeah. But before we do that, I just want you to be aware, we've got Virginia statements ahead, but let's take 5 or 10 minutes at least to talk a little bit about justice reform. And Kid, you would be the one to address this. Let me just mention, last year we voted that we would monitor elements of the local criminal justice system and so on. Now, we still don't have a statement or anything that recognizes the extensive work that the committee is doing. So I just summarized, here's what we said last year at program planning. Here's what Kit had put in the newsletter that just indicated what was going on in the area of justice reform. And the committee looks forward to contributing to a coordinated plan. And one of the things that they're interested in is default incarceration with constructive community alternatives. I mean, there's definitely some targeted areas that Kit has identified that she's interested, the committee, a lot of people here who at this meeting want to work on. So Kit, what would you say that what is your comment on this area?
A couple of comments. And I have illustrated at these meetings every year, I think, that I don't fully understand what it takes to get something in here as a position. And whatever it takes this year, please help me do it, because we're leading a group of activists around the state now for the State League on justice reform. And if we don't have anything in our handbook, I don't know why the hell we're doing it. But I don't know how to, we have someone fortunately who is more attuned to details and organizing them in a really progressive way than someone who once was a journalist. We have a plan. We have a plan that the committee has looked at and they like. And what I would ask is, at a minimum, just to get this in the handbook so that when people from around the state call me and say, we want you to know what we're doing here, and by the way, what are you doing there? And I tell them, but I can't even tell them we've got a position on it.
I know it.
That we say something like our objective is to support and sustain the League of Women Voters of Virginia positions on the administration of criminal justice, while actively researching and advocating for reform of the front end drivers of mass incarceration on the regional and perhaps on the state level, while maintaining individual and public safety. That's drawing partly from what
reflecting
Tracy has put into the really nice plan she laid out for us for the coming year. And I think it's not committing to anything that we're not doing. It's underscoring our support for what's already in state positions regarding justice reform. And I think it puts us in there as a more active player in the state. Other places in the state are doing some things. I just got a publication from Arlington on I'm going blank on it, and it's a form of just restorative justice, which sounds so good and can be very evil. And you know, I want us to have standing here in Charlottesville to talk about things like this when we see them from other agencies, and help shape them into things that work there, while we're also looking. And right now we stand in this whole group as looking very much at the front end, because that's what we've started out doing sort of gradually. It's the things we're looking at that are feeders to the system, where we really can wield some influence and some power here in our own community. And I think we help do that by having the forums for the two not magistrates, what are they called? Are they no, they're not magistrates. Commonwealth attorneys.
Oh, right.
4 years, I should have it down by now. But the forums we did really highlighted the difference between the two. And you know, we were able to attend forums and ask questions and help the community see that their best interests were what they voted for. So help.
Well,
help me understand how in our little green book or yellow book.
Well,
I liked your statement. I would like to ask our people present, could we add that statement to the?
No. Well, why don't, Carol, okay, in answer to Kit's. No, because.
Can you hear me?
She has to do it. We have to do a study update. Having gone through this with the child care committee, and I came and I wanted to add stuff, and what Francis and Michelle and Sue Lewis and all said to me was, Beth, you have to do a study update.
Okay.
So it seems to me, now I would rather have Francis and Michelle and those other ones, various who are here. I don't mean to leave anyone out. It just seems to me, in answer to wonderful Kit has done so much work, and we owe it to her to answer this question.
Karen has been trying to answer.
Okay.
Yeah. Karen says in the chat box.
All that you,
Wait,
all
Beth,
that you have to do,
yeah,
go ahead, is write a statement, give it to the board. The board can pass it or reject it, but I'm sure it would be get put, and then you just give it to the annual meeting. It's not rocket science.
Okay,
Okay.
so that's,
And the statement would include your intention to do a study, right?
No,
No, it's your
it
position.
can, or it cannot, either one. If you want a local position, the committee has been studying, and they can present this for the local board to have a position. Now, that doesn't prevent you from doing more studies or from becoming part of the Virginia study. And eventually you're going to have a Virginia position that's going to cover us anyhow. So if you just want to get a local position in, the local committee can come up with a statement, give it to the board, and it goes to annual meeting. Francis can correct me if I'm wrong.
Karen may be correct, but I will tell you at the annual meeting, I will rise in opposition because the membership will not have had a time to discuss and come to consensus, which is part of the league process. I have nothing against having this report paragraph put somewhere in our membership booklet other than positioned for action, because it is not a position yet. And for good reason.
Well,
I
Francis,
have no doubt that we would come to wonderful conclusions, but we haven't had the discussion.
Francis, could I just say that Kit indicated that the statement that she just made was covered under state positions already.
Can we adopt the state position as our local position?
No, there's no need to do that. We can already act under the state position.
So could Kit indicate that her statement reflects a particular state position?
I think that it doesn't reflect it. It's covered under it, and it could certainly be in there. But it would have to be presented that way,
Yeah.
instead of as an independent local position.
All right. So we're going to be going to the state positions very shortly.
Right.
So let's review that and see if Kit, see if you can.
Can an old timer, and I don't mean anybody who's older than me, but people who have been in the league longer, please explain to me why you are not asking Kit just to do a study update. That's what I was asked to do, and it was very clear. And I would think that that's what she just has to do, and pretty much she's already done the work, correct? No, but I mean, what I mean is that is this not the place to decide if we're going to do a study update? And then she would do it and bring it to us, and then we would read it and come to consensus. And so can we not give Kit permission to do a study update? And all this information she has will be the study, at least part of her study update. I don't know, maybe she'll want to add more.
Which study is she updating?
Right. There is no study, there is no position under which local position under which she can do an update.
No local, but let's look and see if there's a state position. And Kit, you seem to think that there is, that would cover at least some statement that we could use.
Well, then what I would say, Kit, is I've also been following I'm technically on the gun committee. And so they have just been working under the state commission position.
Well,
so why can't Kit work under the state position?
No reason.
We are working under the U.S. position.
Yeah.
Oh, the U.S., not the state. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Correct.
So
it could be either one.
Can Kit work under the US or the state position?
If she could find a
Okay.
place where it fits, yes, always. That's
Oh.
true for any leaguer. It doesn't
So
have
I'm
to be a
just
local
trying to
position.
I'm just trying to help answer her initial statement that she said at the beginning, that she's trying to figure out how they can take action. Am I don't want to put words in your mouth, Kit, but that's what I was,
That was what I mean, that's the way I started this off, that we
I
were.
know, I'm trying to help. I'm trying to help.
Let's just skip
While
all the way down.
specifically
to
looking at the front end, right, in our own, so we're looking to do a study that has not been done in our own area, and you're telling me essentially we can't do this?
No, I would like to talk to you offline, outside of program planning, with the understanding that this is part of the program planning. But we have other things we need to talk about too during this next hour.
All
And I
right,
think
so
it'll
okay.
take a while.
That sounds good.
So this is something we're definitely going to work on. The question is whether we could put a statement that will be covered by a Virginia or US position already. So I just wonder if we could look right now at the Virginia positions on social policy.
I just have a question of whether this would work, because it's sort of like what we do. And then that would be to say that you are supporting the state position, and then you can mention specifically on everything, but then you can mention specifically those things. It seems to me that you have produced a lot of data that sounds like the result of a study, but it hasn't been packaged as a study. But you might be able to specifically say, in conjunction with, we support the state, as particularly, or in conjunction, or in agreement with, or something like that. Some of the specifics that you already know. I think it can be done, but Karen's maybe got more to say on that.
Karen, do you have anything to comment on about that?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I think that it would, when we can't do it now, but Michelle suggested we all go to the state action sheet. And when I did that in preparing for this meeting, they have a wonderful summary of about consensus study and the logistics of taking on the state and US positions. I think we all need to take a few minutes later and read over that. I think would help everybody. I don't think we can do anything more on social justice at the moment.
I just hate to leave Kit hanging without a specific plan.
Well, I would like to just at least be able to list social justice as one of our so-called positions, and indicate that it's not a local position, but that there's a state position that covers the activity that
and I think you can do that at I think you can do that at the annual meeting, is what I put in the chat. I think that can work.
Okay.
Francis will vote against it.
Francis, you tell us, what do you think we should do at this point?
Well, currently we have no social justice category for study, position, or action.
Right.
So what the annual meeting would at least have to do is to agree to create a category under which we might put several things.
Okay.
But
That's it.
but it would, I think, be just as good for the time being to say that we are acting under one of the social justice items that the state or national league has. We can find, they are broadly worded. We can find a way to snuggle in.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Okay,
that's great. That's such good
Similar to
news.
the firearm safety wording, that little paragraph, 3 lines. It just says.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yes.
so
I do
think
agree
so.
with that.
That sounds good. So since we've got only about 45 minutes left, Francis, could you get with Kit? And
Yes.
and Kit, would you be willing to get with Francis? And
No.
you've got a statement there. Let's figure out how we can use that statement some way to get a entry into the positions and then talk about it more at the annual meeting.
Okay.
That sounds like such a good idea.
Maybe
And
sometime before the board meeting. We have the board meeting coming up, December, is it 13th? So we have a board meeting coming up in a week or so.
That's really soon.
Is that too soon to think about? Okay,
Well,
whenever you can, and it is Christmas time, so.
that's my issue.
Yeah,
So whenever you and Francis, let's leave it open.
Our usual December meeting used to be our Christmas party, but we're not having it this year.
Right.
Unless we want to have a virtual party and no meeting. Bring your own whatever.
May I ask, isn't there a deadline for things to be presented to the board, the local board, to make recommendations to the local membership for our local program? I know that for the state, there's an early one.
Well, my plan was to present whatever we talked about today at the next board meeting, but that doesn't, I don't know. Michelle, do you know, wouldn't January or February be time enough?
Yeah, we can do
Karen
it.
just put in chat. Karen just wrote something in chat. She says 1 month before the annual meeting.
I believe it goes
1
in the
month
annual.
before. Okay, thank you, Karen.
Yeah.
All right, so it's not till like March or April?
It goes in the
Yeah.
annual
Say
meeting
March.
packet, I believe.
Has to go in the annual meeting packet. It's usually
Right.
by March. we have to
March.
have
So-
it.
Okay.
So if
Yeah.
Francis
I
and
think Kit and I can certainly commit to meeting within the next month, which gets you to the January or
January board.
February board meeting,
or
which is
February.
plenty of time.
Okay.
Could
Well,
I
thank
just
you.
ask, could I just ask for one thing that I'm not quite sure I'm clear, that we're making a distinction between social justice and criminal justice? Think about that, because
But Muriel,
social justice is
Kit
a much,
uses the term community justice, which can cover a lot of things. Right, Kit?
it does, but it's not used in any of the state.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Well, so think about
What
it.
what is the answer on that, criminal or Kit, do you have a sense of that or not?
It should be a lot of things. It's domestic, it's child, it's adult, it's criminal, it's all kinds of things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Community
But
justice
the term
would include-
social justice also relates to things like affordable housing. That's, at least what people generally talk about. That's why I'm just saying, to make sure we clarify terms as we go on.
Okay, very good point.
And within the framework of working for changes, usually it's used as community justice and not criminal justice. There is a desire to get away from criminal and the whole justice reform movement. But we can talk about that too.
Yeah, I think we're going to love this category. All of us are going to love working on this. I think they're just it has so much potential for all the things that we're interested in.
Well, it really does. And I think I know from working with the League when I was running a justice agency in Wisconsin, the League can really be a powerful voice and a strong actor on things and pushing it to change. When the folks who are working for reform clearly out front, we want to overthrow the system and start over. They need a voice of reason.
Yeah.
That's really supporting what the core of their actions are about. And we have some really very, very liberal, very, very progressive things going on in Virginia right now regarding criminal justice, but there's not you know, there's still not this solid, even though the state league is involved in all of this and has done a couple of really good programs on it. Has not been that much locally going on, and that's why a lot of times pushes states.
Yeah. So we'll look forward to Kit and Francis bringing us their recommendation at like the February, perhaps like around February.
When they
Is
get
that
it
right?
done.
We'll talk soon, and then the committee meets in January, so we
That'll
should
be great.
come up with
Okay,
something.
good.
Thank
Kit,
you.
I
Thanks for
like
the
Tracy, I
explanation.
like the study that's already been done, and, you know, the Sunday seminar that you had, it's all there. It's, you know.
We really need to call the question here.
Move on, folks.
Yes.
All right, here's the Virginia statements, positions in brief. So what we want to do is go over these as we did with the local, and we want to make a decision. Do we want to retain, update, take some kind of action, or delete? Do we recommend to the state our decision on this? So starting with government, do we want to do anything different with delegation of power? Election laws, that position is being updated. Fiscal policy, reapportionment and redistricting. Transportation, women's rights, and Virginia law.
Where's she
That's
getting
all
that?
under government.
Aren't we in a position to where
we
we
wanna
trust what
just-
the state has done?
What'd you say, Ann?
Aren't we in a position where we trust what our state league has done? Is there a reason why we need to try to second guess them?
Well, I think we reviewed them, and I think we're asked to give an opinion on whether we think they're still relevant or not.
You know, the issue is there anything that's out of date?
Right.
Where laws exist and we don't have to advocate anymore, or whether we decide we still want to have that on the books and so forth.
Okay. Delegation of power, is that the same? That's the same.
Yeah.
Election laws, we know there's part 1 and part 2. It's going to be extensively revised.
Right.
So we'll be hearing about that at convention. And what I would do, if we're supposed to send something to the state that we did review these, is just say that we have already sent our recommendation for that.
Exactly. Mhm.
And then fiscal policy. Looks like that's still pretty much relevant now.
Mm-hmm.
Reapportionment and redistricting.
I imagine they'll do a new one on that.
Well,
consistent with
yeah.
the amendment.
Yeah. Yeah, it's probably there will be some kind of update to that. Do we want to add something like we support the commission that is going to be set up of citizens and legislators?
I think that it's
Do we feel
already
the need-
already set up. The statement is parallel to what has been set up, so there's no need for us to comment.
Okay.
What about the uneven number of members? That's not what we have. I think it's 16, isn't it?
Oh,
Don't they have a tiebreaker?
The judges, well,
I think it's an odd number to have a tiebreaker, but I'm not sure what it is.
well, would you give some thought to that? And if you think there's something we might need to add to this,
Can you go down
put
just
in
a
our
little bit,
report?
Carol? Down just a hair
What?
more?
Didn't we just vote on this in the election?
Yeah, the Virginia
Didn't we just
Constitution
vote
would be amended. That
on an amendment?
doesn't go in there, because
Yeah.
it has been done. So
It's-
that could probably go out of the
it says-
statement. I'm sure it will go out.
The position is, it has to be looked at. I mean,
Right.
at the state level, because we already passed an amendment just at the last election, and that's what it says we have to do.
So they
The
need to
Virginia
update.
Constitution should be amended. It was. Maybe
Right.
it's going to go all out.
Yeah.
The,
Just, Carol, all you have to do is say update, but we don't have to do it, but we can tell
They
the
do
state.
it, you're so
Right.
The update.
Okay, yeah, good, Rosalie, okay. And,
And
Alright.
you have to be careful about doing anything else, because if you want to suggest anything new, you've got to volunteer to study it.
okay, okay. Transportation, is there anything that we would want to update or?
I can vouch for that, Karen. They've formed a childcare committee, a group, so.
I think transportation is pretty much the same, that we do have something under women's rights in Virginia law. There was a person who wanted us to indicate that we supported the ERA's coalition
Hmm.
to remove term limits, to remove limits for ratification of the ERA. That was Kate.
Mhm.
Let's see,
Yeah.
but that would be at the national level, right? The US Senate Judiciary Committee has to do that, right?
Yes, and
Yes.
unfortunately, Kate had a ticket to come today, but she's not here. So we just have,
She did write a letter,
yeah.
I think, and indicated she wanted us to consider that.
Mhm.
we can't, not this year.
Right. It's-
So, I
it's
mean,
got- it's
I
got to
don't
be
know.
on
if
the
we would
national.
do-
Mhm.
Okay, so that's a national issue.
Right.
Mhm.
And it ERA passed this past year, right? Was it this past year
Yes,
that it?
but it hasn't
In
been-
Virginia only.
Yeah.
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 So the next one is getting the Senate, the US Senate to agree to change the ratification. Okay, so natural resources, from the state position under air quality, extractive industries, anything on hydraulic fracturing that would change, land use, water supply and distribution. Anything under natural resources, is that all just retain?
At least.
Mhm.
At least.
Yeah.
Okay. And then under
The
social
state has
policy.
always been very poor on that, but there's a lot covered in national, so I think that's part of the reason.
Yeah, and that's what you need. That's fine. That's fine.
Okay. So anything to retain or change regarding the adult domestic violence, adult justice, child care, children at risk, education.
Okay, so I need to briefly bring up childcare. I think it was, Karen, was that you who said be careful because then you'll have to be on the study group or something.
Mhm.
Those of you on the board know this, but a month or 6 weeks ago or something, a woman named Joan Port, who is a board member on the State League of Virginia, League of Women Voters, contacted me, and she has a group, and they are reading our study, our childcare study for the December 18th meeting. My understanding is that the state responded. She told me her not her job, but her job, I guess, her volunteer job. Her pardon?
Portfolio.
Okay, her portfolio or her role is to respond to the local leagues who have an issue they want studied. And so that is why she has responded to childcare, and she is organizing this study, and she has like 8 months, once a month we will be meeting. Okay, I will be reporting back to the board about that, but I don't think we have to, because we have to say anything about childcare right now because we already have said something, and Joan is is forming a study group, and obviously I'm in that study group, and we will see where this goes.
Yeah, your study may actually change, revise this a little bit, but training for caregivers and parents.
Sue and Francis and a few of you might remember, the main thing we want changed is it says adequate. It says minimum, the first one says minimum comprehensive state license standards. We want it to say adequate comprehensive state licensing standards, but this needs to be studied, et cetera, before it's approved. And so my understanding is Joan's response is the first step, and I will keep you informed as to where this goes.
So Beth, do we just check retain at this point?
Well, that's why I'm bringing this up. Jonas, they've already responded, so I don't.
On the update, right?
Well, Joan has already responded. She's formed.
Oh, we should check update. Okay.
Yeah.
So
how do we respond to their question of whether to retain, update, or do it study?
Well, that's why I'm bringing it up, because Joan has already responded. So I would say yes. Okay. Okay. Then,
but what we say is retain.
Yeah.
And in the comments, we say, we understand that an update may be in process at the state level.
Thank you, Francis.
End of story.
Well, I don't, as I said to Joan, she said, well, we all have to study it, Beth. So,
that's because she put you on her committee.
Right. She said, we will read your study, but we have to study it. And so,
of course.
Yeah. So however you,
I got it.
I just want it clear that they have responded.
Okay.
I just want that clear.
And in the comments, I'm going to put, we understand that a update is in progress.
Well, a committee has been formed to study it.
Okay.
But that's what an update is.
Okay.
Okay. Children at risk. Any comments about that? And still important position. And then education. Oh, any comments about children at risk?
I'd say retain.
Just retain. And then education. They really have quite a bit under education compared to all the others.
Well, this all came about last 2 years ago when Carol Noggle headed a study that looked at charter schools, voucher programs, and how our state legislature is using those various programs. And it's very precise if you scroll down a little bit. This first part was voted on years ago in '93, because I was the one that did a lot of that.
Like, what do we mean by quality education?
Yeah, all of this. Yeah, this was all the sort of the mom and apple pie stuff that we did. But if you scroll down to the part right there where it says the League of Women Voters believes that K-12 public schools should prevail as the highest priority for school choice in Virginia because public schools. This is what Carol Noggle did in 2018. That whole section was added on. And it's basically that so that in our lobbying during legislative sessions at the state level, that we can oppose these so-called tuition tax credit programs that we oppose vouchers, because all of these things take away monies that would go to local government per student, and make it very difficult to get funds for public education. So that's why this section is so long. But it's all up to date, and Carol Nagel's been very, very firm about lobbying for all of these things.
Yeah, I remember Jerry Kruger did a program on this.
Yeah, yeah.
And that actual meeting was wild. Francis can give you a whole back update on that one.
On what was that?
On Carol's study, and
Oh,
that
okay.
was adopted in 2018.
Mhm.
Okay, well, it looks good.
So we want to advise retaining that one
Yes.
until they
Oh,
get
yeah.
rid of this
Retain.
standards of learning crap.
Yes, please.
Juvenile justice, support for adequately funded and separate juvenile justice. That sounds good,
Apple pie.
relevant.
Mhm.
Behavioral health, fairly new one. important one.
Honestly, there's, yeah, the one before that, I'm sorry, I didn't get, you know, I don't know what to say, but probably this does need to be starting to think about updating, but I guess not now, but just, there's so much change going on. The only reason why I know it is I worked in this program called therapeutic day treatment. And I know I talked to someone I used to work with recently, and that program has been cut. And we really, really need to be advocating for kids, because the school to prison pipeline, so to speak, even though that's just some people object to that terminology, it's a short way to say something that, in my opinion, is real and happens. And
Already.
so I do think, perhaps not, I mean, 2013 is not that long ago, but this is something for us to, you know, be aware that we need to stay up to date on this.
And we
because-
also know that the first line advocates for adequate funding. That's the issue for so many of our league issues.
Interesting.
And that's why we can speak to them.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Right.
Okay, that, yeah.
We can say that the funding is inadequate, which we know it is.
It is it's inadequate in these programs. It's terrible that therapeutic day treatment got cut, in my opinion. But they
Agreed.
said it wasn't research based enough, and so they cut it. But yeah, it's not, yeah, funding is so important.
Keep an eye on it, Beth, and you don't have to volunteer. To be-
Okay. Yeah, first I got to get this childcare stuff.
What happens?
Yeah,
We can ask-
what happens with 0 to 5 influences the teenagers. What happens to them when they're 0 to 5 influences what happens to them when they're
Oh, yeah.
teenagers. Yeah.
Definitely.
Mhm.
So behavioral health is, we think probably that one's still relevant and retained.
That was the big one too.
Offender reentry and restoration of civil rights for Virginia felons. So we did vote for that. I guess
Retain.
we have voted to restore rights, haven't we? For Virginia felons.
Yes,
Didn't-
this is.
It's still in Virginia law.
It's not automatic.
No,
Right. That's what McAuliffe got in trouble for, because he just
That's
redlined all of them.
Mhm.
right.
You can't do it
The
that way.
governor is still restoring rights, but there's still a process.
Okay. So we check retain for that and offender reentry.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so those are our Virginia. Let's see if there was anything else. So just to remind everybody, this is what we use, this is the form that we use to summarize our meeting today. Is there a new study on a local issue? And what are we going to say about, well, that's pending. There may be a new study, right? At some
No,
point,
I
but we're
thought
not
we
going
were
to say
doing,
anything right.
I thought we were doing an update, or did you do it while I was gone for half an hour? Did you do something that I don't know about?
What were you thinking, Sue? We were talking about that Kit and Francis were going to get together and talk about what the next step was for the justice reform area. That was what I was thinking. That's the only new study, that potential new study.
No,
Okay.
don't.
So but if anybody else thinks anything else should go there, is there an update of a current position? And we had
That's the one that,
several, didn't we?
Not too many on the local level.
Which ones are
But
we?
this is
we're
the
just-
form for the state.
No, this is.
no,
No, that's.
Oh.
something different.
CBA.
sorry, they haven't sent their form out yet.
Okay.
Well, we've got a form we're using at this point, but
Did-
I guess we train. But anyway, for government, we retain everything. Natural resources is retained,
Mhm.
and,
We had decided to defer a few.
oh, yeah, that's
and-
right, okay.
And Carol, you said maybe we need a new column that
Yeah,
was called defer. Is that, do we want to do that?
Mhm,
yeah, let's add a column right here.
What
mhm.
does that
I
mean?
don't know if I.
You need
Well,
to
because
calculate
of-
later.
Who wants to explain
So
it?
we're gonna add a-
Sorry.
Yeah, what does
We're
defer
gonna
mean
add a
that is
column.
different from retain?
Oh, okay, Sue. So we were talking about that. I think there was either one or two studies that had been approved last year, but it was not practical to do them this year because of COVID-19.
Oh, okay, yeah, that would be.
So what we decided, I think it was the education
And the health and family life.
and,
Yeah.
and family life.
Mhm.
And so someone, perhaps Francis, came up with the idea that we could defer it because of COVID-19. So we could make a column
I'm gonna make a column right here.
defer,
Whatever.
and those two studies will be deferred.
Why can't you just say that in the comments? But that, never mind, you.
Oh,
already-
that's an
I
idea.
think that's
That's
a good,
idea. We could
Oh,
say it
either
in
way.
the comments.
Was my suggestion.
Either way.
to make, just make it in the comments rather than another column.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay,
you know,
That's
I
good.
could go either way. I like the column idea because I like the structure. I like the structure of a column, defer.
On
But
the
I
other
could
hand,
go either way.
if all you have in the comments column is defer, that's essentially a column.
Right,
well, you would put, I would put more than defer.
Defer due to COVID-19.
Yeah, I would
Right.
make, yeah, I
But-
would make more of a comment.
Were there comments, were there a lot of comments other than defer? I'm not sure that there were. So really, that's a
No.
comment, no
Yeah.
matter how long it is.
right.
Don't you have to say what you're deferring? What
Yeah.
are you deferring?
Right.
That
Which
was
would
my
be those
other
areas that
question.
you had in red. You're deferring that.
You're not
We don't
deferring the
have any-
whole thing.
This form doesn't have those things on it.
That's
No,
right.
It doesn't, so you have to state what you're deferring.
Then it doesn't make sense. What are you deferring?
Well,
We're deferring the study update. We're
I
defer, okay.
I don't see it on there. Where do you say there's an update?
Okay,
Exactly.
okay. When we were talking about it
oh, wait a minute.
last year in 2019, Michelle knows this better than I do, but last year.
I
in
know what it,
2000
I know what those things were all about.
Okay, but
I'm
you
aware of
couldn't,
that.
it turned out you can't do those two study updates that they wanted to do because all of
So
a
it's
sudden,
not deferring, it's continuing.
well, we can't do them because of COVID-19.
Why not?
That's what we-
Why not? Did you say why
Comment
not?
text.
Because
Life
interview,
is going on.
Yes,
because
but differently.
the
Our
schools-
intention.
the schools are so overwhelmed that to be phoning school personnel right now seemed to be overly intrusive. And so we came up with the idea of putting defer on those because we want to do those studies updates, but we have absolutely no control over COVID-19.
Here's my point.
It's rude, and we think it's rude to be calling school personnel right now.
Here's my point. They do not show, those things in red do not show up anywhere in this.
Oh,
And what is that? What, the yellow book?
Yeah,
So what do you want to do about that?
I'm looking at the form and I'm going, okay, I don't see any of the things that are in red referred to here that you could click a column that says defer. I just don't, but maybe I'm not thinking right.
We've never had a pandemic like this.
Well, I mean, I recognize that, but that's not the point.
but I think, Sue, you're saying instead of use defer, use the word continuing.
Yeah, that,
Continuing our.
Proposed update.
yeah,
Okay, so we'll say continuing instead of defer.
Yeah, but
I
I'm
don't
gonna
care.
But
elaborate
we're not,
on this.
oh,
But you're continuing the proposed update.
that's correct. Not
Yeah,
just
we're
what's
gonna-
in the, that's currently in the position.
Right, you're not changing that at this point.
You don't even need any comments like that in there unless you want to say under education comments, we're going to retain, and comments, we're going to continue to study the proposals that were brought forward last year, something like that. 'Cause
Well,
that's
I think the reason
essentially
why
it.
I think the reason why defer was suggested is we literally cannot continue doing it right now due to the pandemic.
There's no time limit on the
I'm-
word continue. You could continue it for 5 years.
Yeah,
There's no time limit.
no time limit.
Okay, well, I'm just gonna go on now to the Virginia one. We have a form like the local one that is for Virginia.
Yeah.
So we're pretty much retaining everything, right? Everything's retaining. We're not suggesting new study,
Nope.
update. We know that there's one going on for election reform and housing. We're not going to delete anything, and there's no particular action, right?
Are we actually, now that I'm thinking about it with Beth's, this new education study group that Joan Port has organized?
It's childcare.
Right, and should it be under
Yeah.
section that says update or?
Yeah, I think I would like it if we could say,
Otherwise, why is it in there? Why do they have the group if there's no suggestion for doing anything?
well, I think she formed the group in response to, probably to me. There may have been some other people in the state who want to do childcare too, but I assume it was primarily because of me.
You spoke at convention.
I would appreciate it if you guys were willing to put in update on childcare.
It makes great sense. Otherwise, you're just spinning your wheels.
Yeah, I mean, I would appreciate that. I would appreciate that. Because then we can officially, because yes, I still, that's a long-term goal, even if it takes 2 years.
We had actually said that in the comments, we should put, we understand that something is already in progress.
Yeah, that would be nice.
That's all that was missing.
I think that would be a good thing too.
Is it update is planned or update as planned?
What do you want to put? What should?
There's a study group formed.
I know that. It's
Okay.
is or as, that's the only question. Update
think
is
as.
planned or update as planned?
A study group has been formed.
about that?
Um,
Update is planned by the study group.
That works.
I think the State League Board will recognize what we mean
Yeah,
when we submit the form, no matter what verbiage we use.
I agree.
Okay, and just to, this is not the form that we sent, this is our worksheet. We
Right.
will get a form from them, right, that we're supposed to fill out.
That's
But
my
it's
belief.
self-
Yes, they were surprised that there were a couple leagues doing program planning in December.
Oh, it is earlier than a lot of people.
We always do it in December.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, okay. Well, so we've covered the Charlottesville programs, I mean, our local programs and our Virginia programs. And it's
That's it.
4 minutes till 4. Yay.
Congratulations.
I know, this is amazing. I don't think there's anything else, any of these documents that we haven't looked at. So,
Stop the screen sharing. Yeah, there. Congratulations, everybody,
Mhm.
yes,
for
everybody.
hanging in there and
I
doing
am-
all of this.
I really
It is
apologize
not
for
an
being
easy
late.
task.
This
You.
is-
Thank
This has
you.
been
Yeah, I'm
gone
sorry.
well, Rosalie. Glad to see you.
Yeah.
So I
And
guess,
thank you, Michelle and Carol.
Thank you
Okay.
so much.
thank
to
you,
Carol.
Maggie.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you,
you. Thank you for all your
everybody.
work.
Have a
on it.
good rest of the afternoon.
Yeah, stay
Okay,
safe.
bye.
Bye. I'm going outside now.
Thank you, Michelle, for setting this up.
Okay.
Bye. Bye, Jerry.
Bye.
Bye, Michelle.
Bye. All right.
Let's see, how do I get out of this?
Just say
Bye,
it.
Karen. Leave
All
me.
right, I'm ending it all. Bye, Karen. End meeting for all.